a part of his mission motivate million minds, he is actively associated with a number of society non-profit organizations like Adi Foundation, Bread Society, ESSE, NSC Society, and an active YouTube contributing more than 200 videos on different domains for reaching a wider spectrum of academic community. Sir, on behalf of IEEE Education Society, Bangalore Chapter, Mysore Subsection, North Karnataka Subsection, I take pleasure to welcome you, sir, for this talk on National Innovation and Startup Policy 2019 for students and faculty. We'd like to welcome you, sir. And also I request you to start the session.
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. And I take this opportunity to profoundly thank all the organizers from IEEE Bangalore Chapter, and hope my audio is here now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I would like to acknowledge the kind of gratitude that you have shown towards me in involving me in this wonderful webinar organized by IEEE Bangalore Section, Mysore Subsection, and IEEE Education Society, and all the dignitaries of IEEE Bangalore Chapter, and Dr. Reddy and Dr. Bharati, and all the other dignitaries. A very good morning, everybody. And let me just share the National Innovation and Startup Policy 2019 for students and faculty. It's a kind of a demystification exercise, because as we all know, that the government of India has taken two wonderful steps in the year 2019-2020. In 2019, they have brought out a National Innovation and Startup Policy, particularly for the students and faculty, to as a policy issue, what exactly is the role of faculty, what exactly is the role of students, and also managements. They have clearly defined the role of the institution managements also in order to facilitate both faculty and students with their innovative ideas and how they can be future entrepreneurs. In fact, all the higher educational regulatory bodies, you call them as AICTE, UGC, Ministry of HRD, and now it is anyway Ministry of Education. All of these have come forward in formulating this policy. Then later, in 2020, Ministry of Education has brought out this National Education Policy 2020, which will truly integrate the policy that has been brought out in 2019. So this particular generation of students are really fortunate to have this kind of 360 degrees flexible education system. We normally listen it in Western countries, but good and glad that Government of India has brought out this wonderful policy. So let's briefly discuss and try to understand the terminology of innovation and startup. I'll try to demystify these two terminologies and then go on explaining about the what are the key policy issues where the students and faculty should be concentrating on that. Now, this is exactly what I hope the slide is clear now.
Yes, sir.
Second slide.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Kindly prompt me if at all there is no slide movement, because that normally happens in this video conferencing. Yeah, you will see MIC is MHRD's Institutional Council, Innovation Council, then MHRD itself, now it is Ministry of Education, UGC and AICTE have brought in this policy, which should function as a guiding framework for all the higher education institutions in the country. And then this basically starts with seeing the Albert Einstein's picture here. According to him, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And now this particular policy clearly talks about where we stand, whether we stand the 99% of the people who think that nothing is a miracle, whatever happens in nature, and in that 1% of the people who think that everything is a miracle. So this policy clearly defines for all those 1% of the students and in their thinking ability, because how many of us really think? That's one matters most. So this particular policy is basically for all those people who lie in that 1% of the population who think that everything is a miracle. And this particular policy guides as a framework, and it is the role and responsibility of every higher educational institution and the faculty to bring as many students as possible to increase the number from 1% to 99%. Then only can India dream of reaching that $5 trillion nation. And that clearly is the objective of policy. Now the next one, hope you're all seeing this Wikipedia.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've just taken, and in fact, I've shared the presentation with Bharati madam. Nothing is confidential in this. And I request the organizers to share this presentation to everyone. I've just only collected the information, and let's understand what exactly is innovation. In its modern meaning, it is actually a new idea, a creative thought, a new imagination in the form of a device or a method. It can be a product or it can be a process. So probably anyone who understands innovation never get confused with invention, because invention is the unraveling the mysteries of nature, because that takes years to gather. Every scientist who has invented something would have worked probably years together, 10 years, 12 years. And many times, the person who has postulated a hypothesis would have died before the scientist catches this concept and brings out that invention. So let's not worry about that invention. Invention can take years together, but innovation can take a jiffy, a second. So when we are coming out with a new idea, a creative thought, it can be a new imagination. Every time you come out with an idea, anybody can strike it off. Still, as long as you have the application of better solutions that meet new requirements, unarticulated needs, or existing market needs. This is exactly innovation is viewed many times. With application which gives a better solution so that new requirements are met for an unarticulated needs or to meet the existing market needs. Anything can be an innovation. So such innovation takes place through the provision of more effective processes, services, technologies, or business models that are made available to markets, governments, and society. So I request every one of you to please understand this particular innovation. It is not at all a great thing. In India, we normally call it as, in Hindi, we call it as jugaad, right? So there can be a solution for every problem. And we know in India, in society, you call it a society, you call it as a ecosystem wherever we are working, a village, a farming community, a business society, a street vendor group of people, everyone are having problems, right? So it all depends on all of us being educated for so long years, how we are contributing to better solutions to meet their requirements, to meet their needs, and to meet their market needs. And that is exactly is the innovation. So if any student or faculty demystifies the particular term innovation, then everyone should be ready to innovate something, and everyone should be in a position to, after all, we all have the brains, but brain is only a hardware. And what drives the hardware is the software. And that software is nothing but our mind. Mind is nothing, mind is a software. It is basically the thinking ability of everyone. If everyone are thinking, everyone are developing an operating system to operate our brain. That is exactly what we need to do. We need to inculcate the habit of thinking among the student minds as how they can start thinking different ideas so that they program their brain. Because otherwise, the continuous rote learning way of things, they are not at all using their brains. So it is the sole responsibility of the faculty, to make them think, make them program their brain, and only then we will have millions of innovations coming all over the country, and no wonder India can really have that a demographic dividend which so many leaders keep telling us. Now, having understood innovation, let's come to understand what exactly is this innovation in a nutshell. Innovation is a kind of a theme of thinking, defining, and designing, Once you think, when you imagine, it's a theme of thinking, right? When you imagine, you should make a meaning of it. You should define it. You should bring out a proof of concept. What exactly is your idea? Then give it a shape, whether a physical shape or a specifications. That is called basically the design. Now, when you have this, that should make a meaning, because your innovation should change the world. How it can change the world, how it can democratize the solution. Every solution, it should democratize. In order to understand democratize, let's take an example of computers. Apple has democratized the computers. Basically, everyone can use it from anywhere. Similarly, Google has democratized the information. Anybody can feed the information in, and anybody can tap the information out of the Google. That's exactly what it's a kind of an innovation. And e-commerce, eBay has first introduced the e-commerce, democratizing the e-commerce. Similarly, YouTube, now we are all seeing, every one of us can upload a video, and any one of us can upload the video from that. That is the democratization thing. So when you innovate something, when you come out with this particular solution, you should be in a position to democratize it so that everyone can use it, and anyone from anywhere can apply it to any particular situation. Then you have a make of mantra, like Hero Honda says, Desh ki dhadkan. Instead of having a big one-para vision and mission, if you have a mantra, kind of Amul, the taste of India, thumbs up, taste the thunder. So these are all key words to briefly, explain the functionality of your idea, the functionality of your innovation. Then once you having worked with it with a proof of concept, then you should go to the technological development. You will see so many companies, you call them as, several companies, like, for example, Videocon. And so who could not have their own innovative team within the company, they have to literally die over the years. So there has to be, you have seen, you have number of such companies over the past 10 years, if you see, if you do not have the proper innovative team working for the continuous product development or continuous service development, and you cannot sustain in the market. And that is where, if you want to go to the next curve, you have to have a continuous technological evolution. And that's how the example of ice blocks. When ice blocks were there somewhere in the Europe, people used to go all the way to get the ice blocks. Then the people innovated into ice factories where the ice made. But remember, people who innovated ice factories are not the people who owned ice blocks. Similarly, the people who innovated refrigerators are not the people who owned ice factories. So now with the refrigerators available, we have ice factories, ice blocks available at every home. And that is the technological development. So don't ever think that a particular company which is engaged in a particular process alone should have an innovation. And every one of us can take the clue from that and start innovating for a different product. Then we will be getting you will be superseding that company. And while doing so, don't worry, be crappy. Crappy is a word which you can make a draft, go with the draft. Never try and ever try to attempt to bring out a masterpiece right from the beginning itself. It's not possible. You have to grow with different versions, right? Then you go on. So in the process, let 100 flowers blossom. Right? This is a concept where when you are working out on an idea, you will be coming out to different lateral ideas. Like, in fact, when Apple was working with computers, Apple never became popular in those days with computers. Apple became popular with Lotus Notes. That brought revenue to the computers. So you will never know what lateral ideas you will get in the process, and let you blossom, let 100 flowers blossom from your idea and go on encouraging them. Remember, great products always polarize people. If you have a really good idea, it's not a great task to polarize the people. And in the process, you should go on continuously churning your product. That's exactly what is the path of innovation that you would be doing. I hope the next slide is clear on startup and entrepreneurship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So having understood the innovation and what is the theme behind the innovation, and once you have an idea, you have a proof of concept, you are prototyping it, then you should have it on your own. whether you registering for your IP rights and then starting your own venture. In that case, we normally call it as a startup. So there is a difference between startup and an MSME, micro, small, and medium scale enterprises. So if you take an existing business model and try to replicate it, try to emulate it, bringing out more business ideas, you normally call it as an MSME, small scale industry or medium scale industry. But when you have some innovation in the business, and you normally call it as a startup, and that attracts lots of benefits from Department of Industry, DPIIT, Government of India. And of course, there are several investors, angel investors, or who are ready to fund a real startup with an innovation. There is absolutely no depth for funding for a startup. The only thing is we should come out with a real models. And this startup is a company, or it can be even a project initiated by an entrepreneur to seek effectively develop and validate a scalable business model. This is very, very, very important here. Now, your business model should always be scalable on the long run. Only then your startup will become success. Otherwise, it can be a simple, small scale industry. But while entrepreneurship refers to all new businesses, including self-employment and businesses that never intend to become registered, startups refer to the new business that intend to grow large beyond the solo founder. Now, an entrepreneur can be one person who starts as a solo founder, but after some time, you should be able to join some people, take some co-founders together in order to grow, because unless you scale up, you cannot compete the market. You cannot grow along with the market. There is no point in starting a business when you cannot scale up. So startup is always embedded with scale up. Unless you have a scale up idea, your startup cannot sustain. And that's where an entrepreneur always comes out with a business model, with a company, registration of a company, either as a proprietary or a partnership or limited liability, LLP model, and then private limited. There are several things available on this model. The only rider here is the startups often face high uncertainty and high rates of failure. But a minority of them do go on to become successful and influential. That's where we need to set up that's where you need to take the risk. Whether you want to be, remember the Einstein's thing, whether you want to be in that 99% or we want to be in that 1%, right? And if you are trying to groom yourself into that 99%, you will run right there all through your life. But if you can stand out and try something, that is exactly where those minority of them do go on to become successful and influential people. And you read the history of several successful entrepreneurs. All of them have failed several times. So failure is the first success mark of any entrepreneur. So each failure, if you take it as an experiment, if you take it as an experience, then definitely you are likely to go on. And remember, these minority of startups are becoming unicorns. Okay, so unicorns are nothing but privately held startup companies valued at over $1 billion. Okay, so if any particular total net worth of the company is $1 billion US, we normally call it as unicorns. Okay, so the example I've taken only Indian unicorns. Jio is one, Paytm, Ola Cabs. You all know, Paytm is how revolutionized Paytm without having a physical branch anywhere. And similarly, Ola Cabs, no physical cab. Oyo Hotels, none of them. Oyo Hotels never own a hotel. Byju's, Swiggy, Zomato, BillDesk, Musicma, Big Basket, Policy. There are several these kind of things. I've taken only Indian unicorns, right? So if you take all over the world, you have several unicorns in US and China, and coming year on and year on. But it is now India has taken this lead, and from every year we will have many such unicorns coming every year. That's the vision of Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is the erstwhile planning commission chaired by Prime Minister of the country, where Niti Aayog stands for National Institution for Transforming India. And this Niti Aayog is the umbrella organization to encourage the entrepreneurial and startup ecosystem in the country, And that's how Sri Krishnadevara University has got, I'll explain you when I come to that particular thing. So you can also, I expect every one of you to please Google all these unicorns. What are the global unicorns? What are the Indian unicorns? What are their experiences? How they have struggled, how they have survived, and how they have been successful. And these are all the self lessons. You will have wonderful resources in Google, and that will make you really challenging task. Yeah, I hope the next slide is visible. What is a startup?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So a startup means DPIIT, normally called as Department for Promotion of Internal Trade, Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, in a Department of Industry. So DPIIT basically defines the startup, and then depending on that, you will be getting the incentives from the government of India. So any startup with a period of existence and operation less than 10 years from the date of incorporation still can be considered as a startup. And the type of company should be incorporated as either private limited company, a registered partnership firm, or an LLP, limited liability partnership. Then the annual turnover should be less than 100 crores. It should be an original entity brought out from an innovation instead of having a large innovation and reconstructing the already existing business. That cannot be considered as a startup. Then your business model, business plan should have an innovativeness in that. Then it should be scalable with high potential for creation of wealth and employment. So that is when you normally call it as a startup. This is the clear definition, demystifying of what is startup. Now we are clear about an innovation. What is an innovation? Who is an entrepreneur? What is entrepreneurship? What is a startup? Now, with this in mind, this is exactly what is brought up by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, UGC and AICTE. And basically, they want to drive the students and faculty in the higher education institutions with this policy thing. Now, the rationale of the policy, hope the PPT is clear with rationale. And we have some of the points listed out here. The rationale behind this entire policy being that, in fact, I was in Palo Alto last year, in 2019 May. Palo Alto is the Silicon Valley in California, where the Stanford University lies. It has out of 2,500 acres campus, 500 acres is clearly allocated for the startups. The Stanford University, basically 80% of its revenue comes from the equity of all the startups. And that's the culture which they have over the years, for the last 75 years. But glad that India also has taken, like this, many Western institutions, startup culture is built-in their academic pedagogy. But unfortunately, we have not been thinking on those lines so far. Glad that Government of India has really come out with this policy. This is the basic rationale about this. In India, innovation is still not the epicenter of education, not so far. Now they want to make this an epicenter. Now we will see what is an epicenter of education. So far, what is the epicenter of education? Number one, passing the marks. Number two, placement. And these are only the benchmarks. But now, unless even the placements cannot be the metric for any education institution in the years to come, it will only be the innovation and the number of startups that each higher education institution is churning out year on year. That will be the clear metric for evaluating any higher education institution in the future, mind you. So that is the reason why we all should be aware of all these things. And then no support in institutions to engage students and faculty to participate in innovation and entrepreneurship. And then failure is a stigma or a taboo in Indian education system currently, as we all know. And every one of us are warned that, you will get failed in that. Don't go in that direction. Be careful, be safe. As long as we are a safe zone, we can never, ever really grow up and contribute to this country. Then startups and entrepreneurship are not the primary career options, at least not yet. We all recognize this. And we all know that our people keep telling always that the demographic dividend of India is not fully tapped. That is also, remember, the demographic dividend is 50% of the population is less than 45 years. And this is not there anywhere, any country. And only India has that. Remember, unless we focus on these kind of things and steer the youth, the students and faculty in this direction, this demographic dividend should not become a demographic disaster. And that's where the role of the faculty lies, in the motivating the mindset of the students, to make them think, to bring them out of the classrooms, and then come out with an idea. Because we have seen all these years, as long as the students are within the classrooms, their minds are shut and they're not opening their mouths. So we need high time that every institution should have this kind of a system where the students are given an opportunity to come out with an innovative ideas. So once you do that, India is not yet prepared for, finance minister keeps telling by 2022, India should have $5 trillion US economy, right? And there is, of course, the surging unemployment in India. We cannot always expect. There is always a say, when it comes to startups and industry. If a 10,000 crore turnover company comes to a country, it will be employing 10,000 employees. But at the same time, if 1,000 turnover startups bloom in a particular country, there will be 10 lakh jobs available in the country. Imagine what is the contribution of those startups. That is exactly what we know. So once we have this kind of an ecosystem in the country, tackling unemployment is not at all a problem. That is exactly where we will be tapping the demographic dividend of the country. Then we all understand that gap between skills required and skills imparted is very large, right? So the final year student, the best student of a college, still goes out and starts getting trained again. We have seen many service-based companies, rather product-based companies also. They have their own training center. Now the question is, when a candidate is really studying for 4 long years in a particular domain or a discipline, why should he again be trained by a company? Why should he waste their resources there? He should be readily employable. That is exactly what is actually reducing the gap. Then, it is quite clear that syllabi and staff are not tuned to the market needs. What we study and what we understand is only for the examinations, not for the market needs. And, as we go on like this, the list goes on and on. Then the vision of this policy is it should work as a guiding framework to envision an educational system oriented towards startups and entrepreneurship opportunity for students and faculty. This is the vision of this policy. So the policy should also provide ways to Indian higher educational institutions for developing entrepreneurial agenda, managing intellectual property rights ownership, technology licensing, and equity sharing in startups or enterprises established by faculty and students. Remember, every higher educational institution, if they really develop this kind of an ecosystem with IPR ownership, technology licensing, and equity sharing in the startups started by the faculty, you will have every institution, they need not look for the fee from the students. And this equity and most of the, you call them Berkeley, you call them UC Berkeley, or you call them any National University of Singapore, any such universities, many of the universities or higher education institutions, this equity in startups started by their faculty and students is the major source of income. Why not we do it in India, and why not some of the education institutions, premier institutions in the country emulate this kind of a model? So in order to do this, we have to ensure that innovation and startup culture is the primary fulcrum of our higher education system. Unless we have this, we will not be achieving the vision of this policy document. Then these are all the steps which I will very briefly go through. And if you see the entire policy document, it is divided under these subheadings: the strategies and governance, and startups enabling institutional infrastructure. Then how do we nurture innovations and startups? And what are the product ownership rights for technologies developed at the institute, and organizational capacity, human resources and incentives, creating innovation pipeline and pathways for entrepreneurs at the institute level, norms for faculty startups, pedagogy and learning interventions for entrepreneurship development, collaboration, co-creation, business relationships and knowledge exchange, entrepreneurial impact assessment and way forward. So let's very briefly see all these points in order to demystify the entire policy. So when it comes to strategies, we have resource mobilization plans to support pre-incubation, incubation infrastructure and facilities. That's exactly the base on the strategy for the governance of an institution. So every institution should have a sustainable financial strategy to reduce the organizational constraints. Otherwise the organizational priorities are different. So unless we have a dedicated financial allotment, a budget for that, for example, an innovation fund of at least 1% of total institutional budget, if you earmark for it, let me tell you, if you really nurture these startups in 5 to 6 years, or for as less than 3 years, the education should be reaping the benefit in terms of equity from the startups, from the students and faculty. It has been proven all over the world. Only in India, we are yet to test this. And if it goes out with every higher education institution, it is not at all a big task. Then the strategy should also be to involve fundraising from diversified sources like Department of Biotechnology, Science and Technology, Electronics and IT, TIFAC, NABARD, NSTEDB, NRDC, and there are so many government sources who are promoting the incubation, entrepreneurship, innovation activities. And although many institutions can always tap the corporate social responsibility from the industries. And you can also have sponsorship and donations from local bodies, and your alumni is the biggest asset, like what we have been seeing in IITs. Another thing which we are seeing when it comes to alumni, and most of the institutions which I have seen, you are getting the alumni either to construct a guest house or construct a thing. But no alumni is tapped for guiding and mentoring a particular startup ecosystem or innovation ecosystem. Who prevents an alumni anywhere in the world, and they can always mentor a particular faculty or a particular student or a particular group of students who are coming out with it. Connect your alumni with this group of students, and they can be the wonderful mentors for doing things. That network is also, because if you want to get this kind of a work, so you get work from network, and your network is net worth, and that is exactly what we need to understand. Then you are expected to have a minimal hierarchical and maximum individual autonomy and ownership of initiative. So whatever initiative that you are doing, you are creating a society or you're creating a not-for-profit Section 8 company within your own institution. You should have as less hierarchical for that, and it should have a maximum autonomy. And entrepreneurship culture should not be limited to within the boundaries of the institution. If you have this in your institute, then you should always be in a position to cater to the needs of the ecosystem in the region. It be a community, it can be a society, or a town or a city for that matter. You should not limit it, because ultimate, what is the benefit? You have to make it a revenue oriented, and you should have more revenue oriented startups. So if any institute have one unicorn, imagine 3 to 4% of equity in that $1 billion company, and your institute will be striking a gold. And that's exactly the model. Never ever have the boundaries of your institution when it comes to innovation and entrepreneurship. The next point is on startups enabling institutional infrastructure. Okay, so because every institute is expected to have a facility where it can be a pre-incubation facility or incubation facility accessible 24/7 to students, staff, and faculty. Even non-teaching staff or a technical staff, even they are not the faculty, but still they can be involved. There should not be any limitation when anybody comes out with the ideas. Then you should have a separately registered entity or a special purpose vehicle. We normally call it as a SPV. Okay, because this SPV gives the functional autonomy to the center other than the higher education institutions. Only the chief executive or the head of the higher education institution can be the head of the special purpose vehicle. But rest of the things should be left to it should have its own CEO and manager and other ecosystem players to take decision to run the show. And then mentoring and other relevant services through pre-incubation and incubation units in return for fee, equity sharing, or zero payment basis. Education institution can always give a loan on a zero payment basis, give a minimal soft loan, this kind of thing. So you should have a kind of a startup enabling institutional infrastructure. You see the next slide, it is on nurturing innovations and startups. Okay, so you should establish processes and mechanisms for easy creation of nurturing startups by students. They can be UG students, PG students, PhD students, or any staff, temporary project staff. It doesn't matter for us as long as with a common idea. Remember, you have to see a long-term return in their activities. And that's what you are in every institution, whatever you develop such kind of an incubation or a ecosystem. Remember that the higher education institution is investing in the concept. Okay. Then while doing so, you have to ensure the incubation support, which can help can be taken from nearest incubation support or handholding. And in Bangalore, you have several incubation centers, and anybody can take the help of the incubation center. Then licensing of IPR from institute to start, because IPR getting patent registration is a very expensive process. You should go through an attorney, and that expensive can be borne from the seed fund that is available for the center, incubation center. Then setting up a startup and working part-time for startup while studying and working. Of course, this clearly, as Brian brought out to the National New Education Policy 2020, where the education system is completely 360 degrees flexible. While you are offering, if you are if you are joining a 4-year honors degree, at the end of first year, if you really get a job or if you want to start your own, you can take a certificate and collect the credits, deposit in the digital bank of credits created by the Ministry of Education, then go on doing their startup or a job and everything. Come back after 2 years or 3 years, join, accumulate your credits. With that credits, you can join any education institution in the country, join in the second year. If you complete the 2 years, you will be eligible for a diploma and you will be accumulating some credits. Again, deposit that into an academic bank of credits, go back to your job or go back to another startup you can have. Work there for 2 to 3 years, come back for the third degree, collect your credits. Right? Then pursue your third year, go with a degree this time. And then again, you can break, come back after that fourth year. You come with a master's degree or a honors degree or a different degree. So the new education policy is totally flexible for the students and faculty. And the faculty also, there are a lot of flexible systems. And that's exactly whether you can work part-time or full-time while studying or working. And all these are possible. And providing address to register. Your facility provides the address to register the company in the campus. Then the students should be allowed to sit for the examination, even if their attendance is less than the minimum permissible percentage. And possibly they can also be entitled for a break of year or a semester to work on their startups or rejoin the academics, because this was not there until last year. And 2020, really, Government of India brought out with this new education policy. And why not every higher education institution start a part-time or a full-time? It can be an MS or MBA or PG diploma in innovation, entrepreneurship, and venture development. Okay, program where one can get degree while incubating and nurturing a startup company. Right? The students can take this credit, pursue this course, or offer a PG diploma, or offer a diploma, or offer a certificate course, so that your students or faculty working in different domains and different disciplines can always take these credits course and get the credits and get the knowledge of how to start a startup. And every faculty may be encouraged to mentor at least one startup. That should be the challenging task for the faculty. Then the next slide on product ownership rights for technologies developed at the institute. Again, your IPR which will be jointly owned by inventors and the institute. You can always derive a policy of your own, how to get a revenue model out of the IPR generated by the students in the institute. Then the interdisciplinary research and publication on startup and entrepreneurship should be promoted by the institutes, and disputes should be resolved through IPR body amicably. That's where this particular center can help. Then organizational capacity, human resource and incentives. So because the policy clearly defines that you should recruit staff that have a strong innovation and entrepreneurial industrial experience and attitude. Because this is one caution to all the faculty or the future faculty is that from now onwards, the faculty, the one remaining all the other academic credentials being the same, those people with industrial background or innovation and entrepreneurial background or entrepreneurial attitude would be given preference for all the educational institutions. Faculty. This is one thing that every faculty should remember from now onwards and keep developing their attitude towards that. And then there has to be a cross-departmental linkages to strengthen through shared faculty, cross-faculty teaching and research. Then faculty and staff should be encouraged to do courses on innovation, entrepreneurship management, and venture development. Nowadays there are so many online courses available by the, you call them as edX or Coursera, or several foreign universities. Almost all the universities are giving their courses on this through Coursera or edX. Okay, you can get certificate within a month, within 2 months, or within 3 months, or your own higher education institution can always start this particular type of a course, provided you have this kind of an expertise in your institution. Next slide, if you see, it is on creating innovation pipeline and pathways for entrepreneurship at institute level. This is very important. No, ultimately, it is the responsibility of the faculty and the management of the institute to spread the awareness on this among all about the value of entrepreneurship and its role in career development and employment. And this is exactly what this is so far. All the students have been trained to work in companies. Okay, but that should be changed. Their mindset should be totally changed in order to bring out this. And students and staff should be taught that innovation is a mechanism to solve the problems of the society and consumers. It's not a challenging task. It is actually, if you start understanding, because India being an agriculturally, diverse country, there are so many agricultural opportunities available to improve the lifestyle of farmers, to improve the productivity of the farmers, which will in turn help the government of India in doubling the farmers' income. That is exactly what Mahatma Gandhi also dreamt of. India lives in the villages. If any education, if any student or a faculty educated person can serve the farming community, you will be helping the nation at large. Then students should be encouraged to develop entrepreneurial mindset through experiential learning by exposing them to training and cognitive. This is also very, very important. It's not just the thing, they should be more encouraged towards the cognitive skills and link the startups and companies with wider entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's what I have been telling. Network. If you want to get your work, you have to network. That is the only thing. There is always say that get work with network. And establish institutions innovation cells. And I think many of the institutions, MHRD has been doing through this MIC program, and they want to popularize this concept, and they're also designing and they have been training the faculty and students through this institutions innovation cells and allocate appropriate budget for its activities, because Government of India doesn't give any money for this IACs. It is the responsibility of the host institution to allocate appropriate budget and promote its activities, and develop a ready reckoner of innovation toolkit, which must be kept on a homepage on institute website. So every student, the moment any student want to learn about innovation and startup kind of a thing, there should be a ready reckoner available for every higher education institution website that should further, bring awareness and motivate the students in that direction. Then there are certain norms for faculty startups, saying only those technologies should be taken for faculty startups originated from the same institute. That's also, you should not take some other institute's idea and then start working on that. And every institute should have a policy, innovation and startup policy. We call it as institutional innovation and startup policy on conflict of interest, to ensure that regular duties of the faculty don't suffer owing to his or her involvement in startup activities. There has to be a policy, there has to be a flexibility given to the faculty, some freedom given to the faculty who have some attitude towards these startup activities. Because ultimately, these startup faculty who will be mentoring a group of students in that particular domain. And then faculty must clearly separate and distinguish ongoing research at the institute from the work conducted at the startup and company. That's also a very good idea. Any ongoing research, and you should be exposed to the students and faculty, see whether they can bring out any startup out of it. In case of selection of faculty, startup by an outside national and international accelerator, a maximum leave of 1 semester a year may be permitted to the faculty. That's what we have discussed. Then faculty must not accept gift from the startups. Faculty must not involve research staff or other staff of the institution activity in the startup activity. Normally there is a say, if we have a research project, if some research scholars are working in that, I should not be making them to work. They should have a proper orientation, proper commitment towards that. It's not like, implementing a project. Human subject related research in startup should get clearance from ethics committee of the institution, because some sort of ethics following is also very essential. Then pedagogy and learning interventions for entrepreneurship development. You see, the diversified approach to produce desirable learning outcomes, that is important. You should have an interdisciplinary learning using mentors, labs, case studies, games, etc. in place, instead of just a lecture-based delivery, which we have been doing all through now. So for creating awareness among the students, the teaching method should include case studies on business failure and real life experience reports by startup. That's how your pedagogy should be there. You should be, that's what we normally call it as experiential learning. There has to be a regular interface with the failed entrepreneurs to share their experiences, so that our students and faculty do not repeat the same failures, the same models. And our systems are not designed for tolerating and encouraging failure. Failures need to be elaborately discussed and debated to imbibe that failure is a part of life. Remember, how many of us are really ready to face the failure? If a person is ready to face the failure, a person who has faced many failures will be a real successful person at one time or the other in their life. And that has been proved over the years. Then entrepreneurship education should be imparted to students at curricular, co-curricular and extracurricular level through elective, short-term, a long-term course on innovation, entrepreneurship and venture development. Industry linkages should be leveraged for conducting research and survey on trends in technology, research, innovation and market intelligence. Then there has to be a customized teaching and training materials that are to be developed for startups. So this is how we will be supplementing the pedagogy level learning interventions for entrepreneurship development within the institute. Then the most important thing is the collaboration, right? And because any city and everywhere, the institution should always have a collaboration with the local ecosystem, whether they are the industry or the organization or the research institutes or an IPR body, or a startup or a co-institution. Always there has to be a cross collaboration to co-create these business relationships and knowledge exchange, because the stakeholder engagement should be given prime importance in the entrepreneurial agenda of the institution. That's very important, because the stakeholder, because who are all the stakeholders? They can be students or a faculty, they can be the parents, they can be the society, all are all the stakeholders for any higher education institution. Okay, so the institution should find potential partners, resource organizations, MSMEs, social entrepreneurs, schools, alumni, professional bodies, and entrepreneurs to support entrepreneurship and co-design the programs. You involve them, you form a committee where you are involving from different diverse section of experts, and then you co-design your programs which will be useful for your students and the students of other institutions in the region. A knowledge exchange through collaboration and partnership should be made a part of institutional policy. And then finally, the entrepreneurial impact assessment, you should have a proper strategy and impact assessment, do it. An impact assessment for measuring the success should be in terms of sustainable, this is a very, very important word, sustainable, social, financial, and technological impact in the market. It can be a sustainable social impact where you are democratizing the concept, or it can be a financial model where it is getting some revenue to you, or it can be a technological impact because it is creating some technological edge over the existing product in the market. Okay, and ultimately, the commercial success alone is the only measure in the long run for any entrepreneurial impact assessment. In fact, with this, the policy, I'll briefly run through the initiative of the Government of India in setting up of Atal Incubation Centers all over the country, basically to imbibe the rudiments of this innovation and entrepreneurship among the students and faculty of the higher education institutions. In fact, Atal Incubation Center, Sri Krishna Deva Raya University was set up in the year 2017 when Niti Aayog has called for, as I said, Niti Aayog is an erstwhile name for Planning Commission. When they have called for applications all over the country, there were 3,658 applicants. Literally everyone can apply, institution, industry, individuals, a startup company, anybody can apply for setting up an Atal Incubation Center. So out of 3,658 in the year 2007, Niti Aayog has selected only 13 organizations to set up Atal Incubation Center. And Sri Krishna Deva Raya University happens to be the only state-funded university in the entire country in that year. And in fact, in South India, we had only 3 out of the 13. We had CCMB Hyderabad, National Institute of Fashion Technology Tirupur, and Sri Krishna Deva Raya University Entrepre in that 2017. Then of course 2018, 19 and 20 other we have around 70 Atal Incubation Centers set up in the country by Niti Aayog for the last 3 to 4 years. This is a very brief background about the Atal Incubation Centers, which functions as an Atal Innovation Mission under Niti Aayog. Basically, these are all the hope for emerging entrepreneurs. The basic vision of an incubation center, any incubation center, is to create a conducive ecosystem for the innovation, entrepreneurship, and incubation, leading to employment generation, reduction in migration, and local economy development. Okay, this is a basic vision. And the goal of any incubation center should be to inculcate entrepreneurial spirit in the ecosystem, create a paradigm shift in youth, and prepare them to become the next generation innovators and entrepreneurs. This is a broad goal of the Atal Incubation Center. No, this is common for any incubation center. I'm talking about the incubation center as a whole. And the key focus areas could be, so for AIC SKU, we have selected 3: renewable energy, agriculture and food processing, and information and communication technology. We have a good set of startups in these domains. And our main aim is in agriculture and food processing, getting technological or ICT interventions into energy and agriculture, and we can have a number of startups. Those are the key areas. Now, every institution can have a pre-incubation facility. I'm giving this basically to give you an idea of what is a pre-incubation. A pre-incubation, when a student comes with an idea, and then we are helping them in ideation, and then helping to build up a proof of concept from out of an idea. And then we are making him to come out with a prototype with proper mentoring. Mentoring in the sense, whatever the domain which he is selecting, we are connecting him to an expert to mentor him on all technological, financial, marketing, and other sustainable models in bringing up a prototype with the proof of concept. And then ultimately, after mentoring, we are also helping them to register for IPR so that his IPR is protected. So your pre-incubation stage is only up to creating a prototype and then registering for IPR, get a patent. That's the stages of the pre-incubation. Then from this onwards, you will be moving on to the incubation. When you come to the incubation, you are already pre-incubated with an idea, you have an IPR ready with you. Then when you come to an incubation center like Atal Incubation Centre, Sri Krishnadevara University, or any incubation center near to you, you will be helped. The Atal Incubation Centre will handhold you in starting a company, in making you help register for a company, and then provide all those professional services to give you a space, an office space, accounting help, administrative support, and all the other things. Give a co-working space where you can have your team set up there, and they will give you the mentoring of further scaling up, then help you to build up the business development model for your company, and ultimately connect you to the marketers and connect you to the marketing thing. So once you have the marketing, you will be in a position to pitch your idea to the investors. And if your idea is really, impacts the market, there are several venture capitalists who are there to support you. And if any, you have seen Redbus, how a group of 3 engineers became a unicorn, sold it to a big company for 300 crores or so. And a small, Where is my train app, how it was sold, developed by a small group of engineers, how it was sold for 4 crores or so within a gap of a few months. And so once the major companies are ready to take over the small startups, if they see the real potential in their market, and then the real fortune comes, it will be beneficial to the startup, and it will be beneficial to the incubation center, because ultimately when your startup from your incubation center exits by getting a proper financial support from a funding agency, you will be getting some royalty or equity out of the 3 to 4% or whatever may be the policy, and that you continue to get, which will make you sustainable on the long run. So this is exactly what are the stages of the. So these are all the typical services that will be provided by any incubation center. When a startup comes, you are registering the startup, then you will be provided all the professional services, then ideation and IPR rights, further prototyping help, lab testing, link you to the industries, develop the business plan from you, mentoring support, internship, because we will be connecting other students from different institutes where they can work with you as interns, not as an employees, and to help grow your company. Then continuous training in terms of capacity building, and facilitate investment, because any incubation center is likely to have a large pool of venture capitalists, where even now we have a group of so many people. For the time being, the music director, or there are several people who are ready. Are there any good startups? They keep asking us, and they are ready to fund. Then link to Government of India's technological transfer, partnerships with the different startups and different industries. Ultimately, the market linkage. Last year, we had Rubens, right? The music director who was with us at our incubation center, inquiring about any good, investment funding. But we had connected him with 1 or 2 startups. Like that, there are several venture capitalists who are ready. Anyway, so just coming to the conclusion section, this is what Government of India is thinking. Innovation, we call it as a innovation generation pyramid, where they have Atal Tinkering Labs, because Government of India through Niti Aayog has selected 10,000 schools in the country. So this 437 is the figure only in AP schools, like that Karnataka, like that every state has around 500 schools shortlisted by Niti Aayog, and provided 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs for the facility equipment purchase, and then 2 lakhs every year for 5 years to have a tinkering experience from the students. Then these tinkering labs will be lead to the institution innovation centers and their Atal Incubation Center. So Atal Incubation Centers in the country will be hand-holding the institution innovation cells and Atal Tinkering Labs in the country. This is the innovation generation pyramid as envisaged by the Government of India. Then if you see the startup to scale up, if you see the Atal Tinkering Labs in the schools, you have an innovation orientation program that lead to identify and nurture the innovations, then come to entrepreneurship orientation to the colleges or institutional innovation cells, identify and nurture innovations, go for the startups where you have a mentoring, product development, IPR, business plan, linkages, partnerships, etc. Again, you have individuals also can come, identify and come to these incubation centers for developing the startups. And then finally, we all know the famous thing, all birds find shelter during a rain, but eagle avoids rain by flying above the clouds. There are so many problems everywhere. Problems are common, but it is the attitude of the person that makes the difference. That is exactly what is required. Okay, so finally, I just leave 10 minutes for any question answer sessions, or I can also elaborate any of the points which I have discussed so far. If any of you are really interested in to elaborate any of the things, or I'm ready to share any of the things. And further, I request, go to the beginning. Any one of you can access this website, aic-sku.com. And we will be ready to handhold. You have it here in the very big, aic-sku.com. And we are a pan-India facility. This is a national facility. And we can have physical incubation or a physical startups or a virtual startups. You can work from anywhere thing. And we will be providing all the network. We will be hand-holding you from all this. We also have an academic partnership models where a gold partnership model with academic institutions where we will be providing a set of services, and a diamond academic partnership model providing certain services, a platinum academic partnership model. If the institution pays 75,000 rupees per annum, we will be hand-holding all their faculty and students, run continuous programs and see that your institution comes out with an educational policy of this innovation and startups and build up the pre-incubation and incubation facility in your own institute. Because we charge all these things. For gold, we charge 25,000, for diamond partnership, 50,000, and for platinum, 75,000. We have already around 10 institutions registered for that. Because Niti Aayog mandates us to go for a revenue model. They don't expect us to give any service free of cost. Because that's basically, we are talking about the business. So if any one of you students, faculty or institution are interested, they can approach any of your nearby incubation center for any help, or you can also approach aic-sku.com. And we are a Section 8 company, not for profit Section 8 company, registered with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And only the Vice Chancellor is the chairman of the company. And we have individual board of directors from industry to man and organize this particular thing. And AIC-SKU is led by a CEO, and we have manager, technical executive, and other office staff, which will be independently functioning in the Sri Krishna Deva Raya University. And any one of you passing through the Anantapur, you are most welcome to visit aicsku.com. There is also a virtual tour available in the website. Please write to us if you need anything. And all that we need is to grow the ecosystem, to spread let million flowers blossom in the country. That is how we will be contributing to the economic welfare and economic growth of the country. So thank you very much. And I take this opportunity to profoundly thank the organizers for giving me the IEEE authorities and the team led by Dr. Bharati and Dr. Shivareddy and the team for a wonderful opportunity given to me. And I am ready to answer any question anytime also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for more informative talk. I would like to share this information for today's talk. The participants are from Vizag Section Education Society, Tirupati Venkateshwara University, SRM University, SK University, Vishweshwaraya Technological University, Bangalore University, and few are from industry and autonomous institutions like Ambedkar Institute of Technology, UVCE, Sri Vishnu Engineering College for Women Autonomous from Andhra Pradesh. So we would like to thank you, sir, for this very informative talk. Can we have question and answer session, sir? Shiva Reddy, sir? Yeah.
I thank Dr. Nagbhushanam Raju for this wonderful insight into the startup. It was an excellent talk, sir. I think we will open up the session for some of the members who would like to ask questions. Yeah, the stage is open.
Trial version.
I think somebody is asking. Please
Trial
unmute
version.
Ravindra.
Trial version.
I think,
Trial version.
Madam,
Yes, sir.
I think one.
Ravindra, sir?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
Sir,
Ravindra is asking.
Sir, is it audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, sir. This is Dr. D. Ravindran from Christu Jayanti College, Autonomous, Bangalore, sir.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear to you. We are also having cell. We are actively running for last years. And as you said, we are also trying to collaborate with different institutions. We mentor different institutions. And one important point, as you said, the requirement is we have to go for a revenue model. That thing I need more input from your experience, sir. That is, we are trying to drive our current students, faculty members, alumni towards the entrepreneurship. For that, we are unable to charge. We are doing a service and we are driving. But how we can connect with the nearby entrepreneurs to make it as a revenue model, sir, from your experience?
Yeah. The best thing is, if you want to really tap the resources of local entrepreneurs, you need to have some facility where they cannot have on their own, right? So it can be a co-working space where you have the Wi-Fi, power, and all the other resources available to them. And if you have a good network of people who can guide them on different domains for different resources, and that will also be a wonderful service. So for each of these services, you can always charge them, saying that you are giving them a co-working space, say 500 rupees per month per seat, or if you are giving a cabin, you can give it for 3,000 rupees per month for a cabin of 4 people accommodation, and that kind of a thing. And when you charge these kind of a co-incubation charges, that includes your mentoring for different services, all those things. Okay, that's exactly one revenue model you can, and you can go on giving. If you have a good expertise in a particular, a biotechnology or a renewable energy technology domain, you can always be a mentor for some other institute where you can charge something on this, and your IIC can charge if not you, if you have a group of people on IIC. So the revenue models is not all that difficult as long as you have a value-based services available from you. And please remember that every service, when you have a value and if that can be serviced, and that can have a revenue model. Otherwise,
Yes,
never ever try to give an advice free of cost. But for the students, even the entrepreneurs cannot recognize their importance as long as the service is free.
Yes.
You have to indirectly train him for a revenue model, that every small thing he thinks he has to expect in revenue. That is the first ABC of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's true, sir. Actually, we are also trying with model and we created few entrepreneurs using our current campus. But my wish is we have to work with entrepreneurs, like the small entrepreneurs. So when we are meeting with them, the two challenges what we are facing, sir, they are unable to give more money. So for example, we are expecting 10,000 rupees, mean they are unable to give one side. Another side, for the agreement or contract, we need their proper documentation. They should have a team number, they should be registered, but that is lagging. Even some people are doing a very great business, they are not ready to share that official document details.
Okay.
So that place how we can manage, sir? Is there any specific amount is mentioned minimum to be collected like that?
There is no. It is all left to the individual higher education institution, and as far as the revenue is concerned, because it is all you trade off. You have those available for 10 rupees. You have those available for 10,000 rupees. So it's all how we normally because if you want to build up the reputation first, charge less. You build up the ecosystem. Let there be a confidence in the ecosystem to the community people, and that is then you can go on improving the. So the best thing is always to even if you charge less in the beginning, go for a revenue model on equity based, because the ultimate aim should be to make at least one or two startups in a year or two to make a unicorn. So then that equity is large enough for any higher education institution. That should be the long-term plan always.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
If possible, I will try to connect with you for further any opportunities we can. Okay, sir.
Please, you can always visit the website or director.knr@aic-sku.com. You can always connect with me. Not at all a problem.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
We are a national facility to build up the ecosystem. We are on a mission mode. So we are always ready to help the ecosystem to any higher education institution.
Yes, sir. Happy to hear, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inquisitiveness.
Any more questions? Yeah. Any other member would like to ask any question, please?
Good afternoon, sir. This is Arun Tangsali from Entrepre Times, Bangalore. It's not a question. I just wanted to recommend. Thanks very much for the wonderful talk. I think it's very insightful. I just wanted to share with the people here and you too, sir, that Times Bangalore is coming up with a virtual incubation activity. I mean, it's going to actually kick off sometime next week for many colleges in Bangalore section area. So this is going to be a 8-month program and follow some of the things that you mentioned, and we will learn a few more from what you have presented today. So we will contact you to see how we can take your assistance and guidance in running our program. So thanks for that.
Yeah, great, Andy. Good afternoon, Arun Garu. It's a wonderful initiative, and the country needs people like you and your initiatives.
So this is one of the very active chapter in Bangalore section, Times Technology, Engineering and Management Society. This is they are very they are very active.
Wonderful. You are blessed to have such a companion.
Yeah. Very dynamic chapters are there in Bangalore section.
Good.
We are 10,000 strong membership force in IEEE Bangalore section. We are globally third.
Yeah. Bangalore name itself is sufficient, and you have everything.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Any more questions, please?
Hello, sir. This is Dr. Narendra Babu from MS Ramaya University.
Yes, Mr. Narendra Babu.
Yeah, sir. I would like to know, there is a gap between the academic outcome and the startup policies and things like that. Though there are many, efforts are made from the government to bridge that gap, but it has not percolated to any curriculum or as such. People at final year, whoever are passing out, or whether it is a postgraduate or graduate students, still they are. It's very difficult for them to look at the startup and policy, what is there in their, what are the challenges and things like that. So, have you seen any curriculum or any university that is providing a kind of integrated course required to equip the students towards the startups in the curriculum itself? Are there any such efforts made by the governments or academic institutions?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Andy. In fact, that's what I've been discussing so far. So far, those initiatives have not been there, except barring some IIMs and IITs. But in conventional universities, technological universities, that is the very reason why the government of India has brought in this particular policy and a new education policy. And if you see the engineering curriculum designed by AICTE in the new education policy and all the models, whatever we have been discussed, that flexibility has already been brought out, Andy. In fact, because you are telling MS Ramaya is, I believe it's an autonomous a university, I believe, right?
Yes,
it's true, university. And then and nobody can prevent you in designing your pedagogy, incorporating and integrating these startup ideas and the educational domains, Andy. And in fact, the new education policy 2020 clearly defines, and all the accreditation agency will give value and weightage from year onwards for incorporating this kind of ideas. And you can always have credits and this kind of innovation and venture development programs throughout over a period of 4-year course. And it is up to you to make mandatory which course to go for choice based and which course go for mandatory thing. And it's totally flexible. In fact, that's the boon of the new education policy.
Okay, but now the efforts are made towards that, but not many universities right now already have it, right? Because it's a newly launched and new concept for many institutions still. This is since it is introduced recently. So I think now, as you said, maybe start providing the electives and giving credits for varieties of the choices and courses. I guess probably maybe down the line that may be fruitful.
Yes, yes. See, the institutions like MS Ramaya and Reva University, these kind of universities who are reputed and in these fields, they should take the initiatives. And you should impress the managements and academic heads in such a way that you impregnate this kind of startup and entrepreneurial pedagogical structure in the academic curriculum. Then I think all the others, anyway, initial resistance will always be there. But in another 3 to 4 years, every institution is bound to have this kind of structure ending. Nobody can stop it.
So, hello.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. This is Dr. Kumudini Ravindra, and I'm the chair-elect of the Education Society as well. Thank you, sir, for your kind, presentation. I think it's extremely informative. And just wanted to add a point to what you were saying as well, is I think one of the bigger challenges is to, first of all, bring about a culture change of in the education sector itself. See, I represent the professional side, the career side of things, and we have also worked in the outcome-based education. Outcome-based education also took almost 10 years to kind of become, mainstream. Though we were talking about it way back in 2010 and 2012, it took this long to kind of get to a point where now every college is at least mandated to follow it. I feel the same thing needs to be done even for innovation. And one of the important things there again is we need to get the faculty to start, thinking that way. So one of the things you talked about, right, being ready for failure.
Yes.
That is something that we have to really inculcate, because I think as a culture, we Indians are averse to failure itself. So I think trying to bring that in and trying to allow experimentation to happen, I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we would be facing in this innovation journey, so to speak. So what are your views on it? And is there anything that is being done in that space at the Niti Aayog or at AIM?
Yeah, I perfectly agree with you, madam. Well said. In fact, that is exactly the initiative of Niti Aayog. They want to make the country's economy, if you want to make $5 trillion US economy, the only way is, as I said, an example, instead of having a 10,000 crore company, big company, we can have 10,000 entrepreneurs with 1 crore turnover. So that it will have a multiplying effect, direct and indirect employment, economy boost, and everything will happen. So this kind of thing will definitely sure to come, and that is exactly why Niti Aayog has been starting right from the schools. They have identified 10,000 schools all over the country. Even in Karnataka, there are 500 schools where each school is given as an adult tinkering lab, ATL they call it. And by giving a 20 lakhs grant, 10 lakhs one-time grant for procuring the laboratory equipment, and 2 lakhs each for recurring for every 5 years, for 5 years. So this is how they want to, and again at the college level, they're having the institutional innovation cells. And in fact, this particular policy speaks that, when you go for next accreditation, whether it is NBA or NAC, NAC accreditation, you are bound to have a cell. You call it as an incubation center or a pre-incubation center. Every institution is bound to have innovation and a startup center or entrepreneurship or startup center, providing all these services and interlinking this with your curriculum. Unless you have these, I think no accreditation institution is going to accept the higher in the years to come. So that is exactly what the government of India is planning, but it is up to us as a faculty how we motivate the students and how we handhold the students and bringing them into this ecosystem. That's exactly what is required from our end.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, Dr. Ambar has one question. Sir, can you unmute and speak, sir? Dr. Ambar? Sir has written his question in chat.
Yeah,
My question is about, sir, can you unmute and speak?
I can speak. Good
Please,
morning, sir. Yeah. So myself, Dr. Amber, and my question is, I have written in the chat that it is about like very few startups can end up with the massive scale production of technology or revenue generation. So where we are lagging, where we should focus more, so that these startups can come up with the more revenue generation and the product development.
Yeah, very good question, Dr. Ambar Bajpayee. It's a good question. See, ultimately, when we bring up that ecosystem, right, and unless we test 100 or 1,000 ideas, we never know which idea will go on to become an unicorn. Okay, unless we test the ideas into market, unless we test the ideas to venture capitalists, unless we test the idea to technological and market demands, which idea can really meet. So far we have not been having so many ideas. So far we have not been enabling our students and faculty to think on those lines. That is exactly what is the hurdle so far. But when you enable the system, when you make lakhs, millions of students who are there in India, if you make all of them to keep thinking about solving their problems, then you will never know. You will have millions of flowers blossoming, and every idea has a chance to get that revenue model, wonderful revenue model. But so far we have not been doing, because failure has been a stigma, and we as a parents and we as a faculty has been the main obstacles for not allowing the students to think. Let me accept it as a parent and as a faculty also. So once we give them the freedom and make them think, and possibly it's not a big thing to get a revenue model. If US can do it, if China can do it, why not India? With this kind of a demographic dividend, if India cannot do it, nobody can do it. That is exactly what is the spirit we should go on. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, what we should teach to the students basically is every one of them should question, right? If I can't, who can do it? And that's the that should be the buzzword for every student in the class. That we should every class should have this. If I can't, who can do it? And once having done that, once they do that, they should always say that, if I can, who can't? And that has been my policy for getting this Untitled Incubation Centre. Getting as a state fund, a remote place in Entrepre, getting an Untitled Incubation Centre with 10 crores budget for 5 years, getting this kind of a facility. Not even IITs, not even NITs could pitch for it. And one of the only state-funded university in the entire country out of 600 universities. I always thought that if I can't, who can? But having got this, I always keep telling, if SK University can do it, which other university cannot do this kind of a thing? That should be the motto for this kind of an activity, Andy.
Any more questions?
Just a quick one. Any ways we can collaborate with you?
Yeah, most welcome, madam. Please log on to aic-sku.com, and you can always share your thing. Our team will get in touch with you. And we have been in academic partnerships with a number of institutions in AP and even in Orissa. And we can always
I don't come
handhold
from
any
the
academics.
academic background, sir. Like I said, I'm not an academic person. I mean, actually, we are an innovation company itself. In fact, we work with organizations on their innovation. So I myself am an innovation consultant. So is there any way we can kind of collaborate to kind of even create the pedagogy if necessary, or the curriculum itself? Because this is something that we've been trying to work with colleges as well. but for whatever reason, they haven't really taken off. So if there is a possibility, just let us know.
Yeah, definitely. You will have a wonderful future in the years to come, madam. With these kind of policies and educational policies and innovation policies in place in educational institution, every institution is bound to be there. And you are almost welcome to associate with us, because, you know, these kind of centers, incubation centers, are a kind of a interface between innovators, entrepreneurs, industries, and to the students and faculty, all these things. We are all here basically to contribute to the ecosystem. And as I keep on telling, people like you or the network, and if a center like us can, or if anyone's typical center can network people like you all over the country, and that's the best part for improving this ecosystem.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Shall we move to the vote of thanks program, sir? Sir, if there is no questions. Yeah. May I request Dr. Bindu Thomas, madam, Chair Mysore subsection, to propose vote of thanks. Madam?
Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
Audible?
Yeah.
Yes, madam. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Bharti. A very pleasant Sunday to all of you. The very essence of all beautiful art is gratitude. I, Dr. Bindu Thomas, Vice Chair IEEE Education Society, Bangalore Chapter, and the Chair IEEE Mysore Subsection, also the Professor and Head of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Vidya Vikas Institute. I take it my deep privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of the IEEE Education Society, Bangalore Chapter, I wish to express our sincere gratitude to the eminent speaker of today's webinar on National Innovation and Startup Policy 2019 for the students and faculty, truly demystified. Thank you very much. Our guest, Dr. K. Nagbhushan Raju, sir, Dean, Faculty of Engineering and Technology, Director, Center of Skill Development, Entrepreneurship and Incubation, Sri Krishna Devaraya University, Anantapur. Sir, thank you so much that you could really demystify the whole understanding of what a startup needs to know. And you really gave a lot of insight, and it was very informative. A motivational talk we have heard about how a startup should be groomed. Thank you very much once again, sir. I also like to express sincere gratitude to the chair of IEEE Education Society, Dr. Shiva Reddy sir, for identifying such an eminent speaker for today's webinar. Thank you very much. I thank the chair-elect of Bangalore, Dr. Prashana, ma'am, joining today on this webinar. Thank you, ma'am. I also thank our chair-elect of IEEE Education Society, Dr. Kumudini Ravindran, for being part of this and actively posing some of our passionate questions. Thank you so much. And I also thank the Secretary of the IEEE Education Society, Bangalore Chapter, Dr. Parthi, for coordinating on this program. Thank you, Professor. I thank the Treasurer of the Bangalore Section Education Society, Dr. Narendra Babu, sir. Thank you, sir. I also thank Dr. Chan, sir. And I also thank all the EXICOM members of IEEE Bangalore Education Society, Bangalore Chapter, actively contributing in making this program a grand success. I also like to thank all the participants of the eminent members of the universities across the country who have joined and actively participated by posing questions and interacting with the eminent speaker of today's webinar. Thank you all once again. Have a great Sunday. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, madam. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Nagbhushan sir, for such a wonderful event.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
universities from across Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka participated. In fact, we also had the Education Society chair of Vizag section participating, entire Bangalore section, Education Society, all chapters, many of the chapter members, industry members, students, faculty participated. It was a real pleasure, sir. Nagbhushan, sir. It was a wonderful event, insightful event. Thank you so much. And let us have many more events in future. We thank Dr. Bharti S.H. Madam for organizing this wonderful event. Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Right.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So finally, congratulations all of you, Andy, for having hosted wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Dr. for coordinating on arranging the at HP. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Sir, shall we have one photo, sir?
Yeah,
Sir.
yeah.
Yeah.
One photo. Vishwanath, can you?
Yeah. All of you are interested to turn on the video. Yeah.
In fact, most of the people must have left by this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Prashant, sir?
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸ್ಲೋ ಇದೆ.
ಮಾಡಿ sir. ಮಾಡಿ sir. ಮಾಡಿ sir.
Shiva Reddy, sir, you're not visible.
Shiva Reddy, sir?
And Changappa, I would request you also to switch on your camera.
Yeah.
Is the man behind every screen.
Yeah. Shiva Reddy, sir?
Sir, your video is not on. Shiva Reddy, sir. And there are many whose video is not on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vijay Lakshmi, madam? Yeah. Vijay Lakshmi, madam? Yeah. Vishwanath?
Yeah. Yeah, once again. Yeah, I lost my power connection. Yeah. I think Vishwanath, can you take one screenshot? Yeah, take and post it so that we can upload this into the vTools. Yeah, I think many have not turned on. Please turn on your video. You can mute and you can turn on your video. I think others. Yeah, okay. Vishwanath, you can also. Yeah. Yeah. Vishwanath?
Yes, sir. Done. Yes, sir.
Done,
Done, sir. Taken, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, this will be there on YouTube and we'll send you the link.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And this will also go on record in the IEEE vTools.
Good, very good.
And we had around 52 participants today from across Karnataka and Andhra. Most of them were very selective and that's how it was.
Yeah, good effort, Andy. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And Dr. Prashant, thank you. Okay.
Okay, and all the best. All the best.
Oh, yes, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.